Okay, we are joined now by Joey Logano, driver of the number 22 Team Penske Ford. Joey, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know you just spent a long time in the booth doing some outstanding rain fill, I must say.
Thank you.
It was
Thank you. Thanks for noticing.
You were the star of Twitter for that. Talk about maybe being in the booth today and then your outlook for tomorrow's Coca-Cola 600.
Well, the booth today was a lot of just hanging out and eating probably too much junk food before a 600-mile race. So just chilling and talking to our fans. Kevin graduated from the drivers only, so that was a big news event for you guys today. And if you want to write all that down, that was huge. But outside of that, we just had some fun. And unfortunately, the weather got the best of us.
And your outlook for tomorrow's race?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, Coke 600, crown jewel event, as you guys know, one that's kind of haunted me for a while that I really want to win. So, obviously nobody knows what they got as far as their race car without practice or qualifying, but we got 600 miles to figure some stuff out.
Okay. If you have a question for Joey, please raise your hand. We'll get a mic to you. Start in the middle with Deb and then work our way around.
Deb Williams, Auto Week. Joy, you have the only Ford victory this year so far, and during the off season, all three manufacturers were allowed to change the front ends and the noses. How has that adversely affected Ford, or what has been the situation what has caused Ford's inconsistency this year in the races?
No, I think you're going down the right road to understand what's going on. Everyone had the ability to adjust their front ends, cooling packages, and we didn't maximize as well as we needed to. I think that's the bottom line. There's no other way around it. So we're constantly looking for improvements and how we can make our cars better, just like everybody else's. But we're starting a little bit behind. Doesn't mean we can't win races. It just means we have to be perfect. And that means the teams are going to have to do their jobs to really overcome some of the issues. So there's still a long season. There's still plenty of races to win and plenty of time to turn the ship around a little bit. But, it's tough right now. It's probably going to be tough for the foreseeable future until we can make some adjustments. But we're still in the hunt. When I look at the races that we are executing perfectly from a car setup perspective, a pit road perspective, strategy, restarts, if we nail all of those, we can win. If we miss one of those, we can't win. So that's just what it's come down to right now. It's just we have to strive for perfection, which we do anyways, but it really, really matters now in how we execute.
I thought it was interesting in looking at the statistical side of it. It seems that the super speedway style racing is where Ford has done quite well this year. But then when you look at the short tracks and the intermediate tracks, that's where the issue has been. Yeah,
we're lacking in downforce, right? I mean, that's where we're lacking. There was a compare done a few weeks ago. Everybody got to see it. So, it's just that's the situation it is. So, it doesn't mean we can't make up that difference on car setup and maximizing what we have, right? And if we do a better job than everybody else, we can make up that difference.
Yep. Mike, do you have a question? Go to Mike Slarty.
Hey, Joey, Mike Solarte, Spectrum News 1. You talked about it in your opening statement about looking forward to the 600 that nobody knows what they got. How much of a challenge is that when you guys come in without practice, without qualifying, and you said you got 600 miles to figure it out, but it's still going to be a challenge. Does that 400 laps, is that kind of a luxury in that regard?
No, that's hard to say it's a luxury, but if you asked us this before COVID, what was this like starting a race without practice? We never did that, right? Like we always would have practice before the race. Now we're all kind of used to it. It's like, okay, well, there's no practice, no qualifying. All right, well, we'll just start the race and see what we got. And so it doesn't seem as crazy as it used to be. And like I said, we'll figure it out. You just hope that you get your heights right. Really, I mean, these days, practice, gosh, you can't change a whole bunch anyways, right? You can adjust your heights, some wedge, sway bar arms and toe, right? I mean, that's what you got. And so there's not a whole bunch of room for adjustment anyways, so it's not as big of a deal as it used to be.
Go to Steven, and then, go to,
Stephen Toronto, CBS Sports. Joey, I'm sure you saw the technical bulletin this week as far as the door gussets that the teams can install and the V brace getting removed in response to Kyle and Ryan's accident at Talladega. In overtime in this race last year, you hit driver's side on the front stretch, and I mean, it didn't look like much at first glance, but you said it was the hardest you'd ever hit anything. Obviously, you know, the safety of the next gen car has been a bit of a moving target. So with the updates that have been made this week and the crash testing that's also been done this week, how satisfied or dissatisfied are you with where the car is in terms of stiffness and the ability to give in an accident?
I don't think any of us are satisfied until we see it's better. And, right, and I think that's kind of the situation we're in, right? We've seen, you know, how we got to this spot that we're in now as far as safety with developing the next-gen car. And it's frustrating. That was frustrating. But I feel like now there's some pretty clear data on where we're at, and at least we can understand that. And there is steps being made to move forward and make it better. So, you know, when you think about the rear clips, okay, that seems to be better. There's been a few rear impacts. Everyone's seems like they're doing okay. It stinks that it got to the point where it's hurt a few drivers last year. And then you see, you know, Larson and Priest's wreck in Talladega, and you're like, okay, well, the front's too stiff too. So we can't forget about that. And so the next steps are made for that. The frustrating part is that we had to wait till some big wrecks happened to make changes. That was the frustrating part, but you know what? Changes are being made now, and that's good.
Right. Thanks, Joey.
Yep.
go to Jordan, and then, go ahead. You can.
Hey, Joey, Trent or frontstretch.com. You mentioned about the no practice and qualifying and everything. Do these cars lend a better situation for that than previous cars? Like, is it a lot easier to go out there or unload and go out there and race without that versus the older gens?
No, I don't think it's any easier. By no means, you know, if anything, it's harder because we understand it, the old car probably even better than we still understand this car. But it's the same for everybody, right? Like, nobody got any laps. It's going all off of the setups that the engineers and crew chiefs and drivers have come up with. You're looking at sim, looking at post, you know, other races at that track or other tracks like it, and the best, you know, decisions you can make, that's what you got. And we'll see what we got tomorrow. It's kind of exciting in some ways, right? And so how good did we do, you know? And so I'm just kind of excited about that part.
Jordan Bianchi, The Athletic. Two questions for you. Was that the longest broadcast you ever been a part of on the TV side before?
It was the longest time I sat in the booth not doing anything, yes. I think you were there the whole time to see it.
It was. What was that like?
Well, you know, you were there. Man, we just, I mean, it's just hanging out, right? At that point, you're just kind of BSing and having a little bit of fun. And, you know, there wasn't, you know, we just try to figure out what's going on, what's next, you know, as far as next hits that come up, we got to do those and just wait it out, just like everybody else. It's really not any different, right? We just waiting to hear the answers. You'd think that we would know the answers before everybody else up there in the TV booth, but that was not the case, guys. So we found out right at the same time everybody else did.
The second question, have you done any iRacing or anything on the sim for the Chicago street course? Nothing yet?
No.
Will that start kind of like the week before? Or?
Yeah, probably something like that. I mean, I've did some of the, you know, iRacing stuff when we did that during COVID. And actually, I take that back. I did do it one other time. But outside of that, Not right yet, but we'll do some Ford sim stuff, I'm sure, and try to figure some stuff out there. Yep.
Steve, do you have your hand up? Yep. Good mic to Steve.
Hey, Joey, Alex is going to race tomorrow if we get this thing underway. And you imagine getting in a car a month after you broke your back?
With no practice, yeah, that's really hard, I would assume. Yeah, it's got to be hard. Alex is a professional, though, right? He's been racing his whole life. He's a good driver. I'm sure it's going to feel a little weird at first, right? Because you're getting back in something going really fast, and it takes a few laps to get used to it again. Which I'm sure I assume that's what it's going to be. Like, I think of just, you can think of the off season most of the time, right? And you get back in the car in Daytona, you're like, whoa, like, I haven't driven a car since Thanksgiving, and it feels a little odd. I'm sure it's going to be like that. Usually we have practice to kind of work out those things and knock the rest off. But I'm sure with Alex, it's not going to take long. A couple laps before he's right back at it.
Go back to here.
Hey, I got one more for you, Joey. So with Kevin moving into the booth next year and stuff and retiring, and you working with him, you've raced with him for these number of years. Working with him in the booth and everything, how do you think he's going to do next year, just being around him in that type of environment?
I think Kevin's going to do fine. The one thing that all of us sitting in this room and everyone in this industry are very blessed to have is Kevin Harvick, and the fact that Kevin Harvick isn't going away. Right? Kevin cares about the sport, cares about the people in the sport. Hearing him talk about the guys in the garage a lot, right? He talks about the guys in the garage as much as the drivers or the fans, or like he cares about the sport. So I'm trying to say, and that is shown in so many ways that you guys don't see, I get to see, but also in ways that the world's going to see in the Fox booth next year. And I think that's something that we all should be pretty grateful for, because obviously he has a great following, a fan following, but he also has a very loud voice within the industry that is very well respected. And the fact that he's not just taking and leaving, meaning he had a great career and he left and he says, thanks, I'm out. He has decided to stay involved and continue to build the sport for the next generation. That says a lot about a person to me. If it wasn't for people like that, I wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you, and you guys wouldn't be sitting here watching a sport either, or writing about a sport. So this is, to me, a true Hall of Fame move. That's probably even bigger than a few race wins that he's had, right? Like, the fact that he cares enough to continue means a lot to me.
Bob?
Bob Hawkers, Fox Sports. In terms of trying to get the Fords better, do you get better in these 20 minutes of practice that you have? Do you get better from the races? Is it just people running hours and hours of sim trying to find a little bit here or there? How do you do it?
Well, it's never one thing, right? It's never one thing. It takes everything, every little piece to make it better. And if you're talking just speed, at least the things you just brought up there are all speed knob type things. And, that's usually downforce drag and horsepower, right? When you're off, that's usually the things that'll bring the speed in. And really these days, that's all you got. It's not going to be a new spindle or something like that. We can't make those anymore. It's what you got is what you got for parts. So if you're off on speed, there's only, three things you can look at to get faster. And we need to maximize our setups and stuff like that, right? And understand the balance of mechanical grip versus aero grip and platform. And I feel like we're doing a pretty good job at a lot of that stuff. So we just got to continue to look for the little things, right? It's just going to take some time. It's going to be kind of grinded out type races. And it doesn't mean that when the playoffs come around, we ain't going to be in the hunt. We are every year. I expect to be in the hunt again this year. I've been through these situations before. And 2018 always comes to my mind when that ended up pretty damn well. So my mind is kind of set on that we understand where we're off and we're working on it. And we got a little bit of time before the playoffs start. We may not go into the playoffs with the most playoff points, but it doesn't mean we can't win the championship. And so that's our situation. And until then, we have to be perfect all the time.
Go up here in the middle.
Grace Holbing of Speed Sport. Going back to tomorrow's race, talking about playoff points, there's 4 stages tomorrow, so there's more points up for grabs. How much of a factor is that for you, going into the race, just kind of considering where you're at in the standings?
It's a very important race for that reason, right? When you add another 10 possible points, another playoff point sitting there, it's one of those days that if you have a good car and you're fast, boy, you can stack in some points. You can have an amazing day. So hopefully we have that, but that's what makes the 600 different and special, and you have that added stage to it. So, and really, if it goes green stage to stage, there's not a whole bunch of opportunity on strategy. So, I mean, you can split it down the center. There might be a few people that go long, a few people that go short if it goes green, but it's not like there's a caution and half the cars take 2 or stay out or whatever. And if there is a caution, it may change some things up. But if there's no cautions, a fast car is just going to get a lot of points. And if there's a car up front and they execute today, they're going to come walking out of here with a boatload of points.
Joey, I'd like to wrap on this question for you. Can you talk a little bit about your visit to the Naval Station Norfolk for Mission 600 and kind of tying that in with racing on Memorial Day weekend?
Absolutely. I was blessed enough to go for Mission 600 to go to Norfolk, Virginia to visit the Navy station out there. And I got on a destroyer and they gave me a tour of the whole ship. And the tour was special. It was cool, but meeting the people was what really felt special to me, and hearing their stories. And I guess the thing that stood out to me the most is they just got back from I believe it was an 8-month tour, and there was 14 members on that ship that have not met their kid, not met their baby yet. And I guess that to me was like it gives me chills thinking about it right now, is that I couldn't imagine the commitment that not only that soldier is making, but their family is making in just everyday living. Like, that's the way they live. Like, they were gone for 8 months, they were home for a couple of weeks, and they were leaving again for another 3 months and 2 weeks. And so they were going home to meet their kids for the first time. I just couldn't imagine. I mean, I get antsy to go home after a rain delay, and I'm home on Monday instead of Sunday night. You imagine being gone for that long and you miss all of that as you fight for strangers that you have not met. Think about that commitment that these men and women do for us in this country. And I guess every time I do something with the military, I leave with it just, it's a good refresher. And I wish everybody in our country got to see what I got to see. Because I think that would change our culture and our perspective a lot, because it is unreal. And weekends like this are great because it is in the front of everything, right? We're stopping the race, right? We do all these things before pre-race. These things are key for us to do to be able to show our military the appreciation they deserve. And it's so easy for us to not think about that stuff because we live in our little world, as we all do, and everything's always great in our little world. But that's because somebody's out there making a ridiculous commitment for us that we'll never understand, right? I mean, think about it, that was just a normal trip. Imagine we going into battle and then paying the ultimate sacrifice that so many people have paid for us, and a lot of them on the windshield of our car this weekend. It's just, to me, that is unreal, that type of commitment people are willing to make for us. So this weekend's special for that reason, to just show some appreciation, shake a hand, say thank you. It's literally the least we can do. It never feels like enough I always leave these places thinking like, man, I'm not enough. I'm not worthy, you know. So it's just a special thing. I wish everyone got to see it.
That's incredibly well said, Joey. Thank you so much for that perspective and your time this afternoon, and good luck tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.